Hey guys, Shane here with etrailer.Com. Today I have a 2016 Keystone Cougar XLite fifth wheel trailer, and I want to walk through how to install the Solera slide topper. Before that, I want to walk you through or go over some of the benefits and negative sides of having one to not having one. For those of you who may be new to camping, maybe you decided to go out and buy a camper and it doesn't have a slide topper, you'll notice that the box slides out to give you more room inside. The box part of it will slide inside. Without having a topper, what happens is the top of it can collect leaves, dirt, debris, water will pull up. If you don't clean that off, what happens when you slide it back in, all that stuff could potentially go inside. Again, if you don't clean it off, what happens is it can mold, mildew, and if you don't scrub it off, where's that mold and mildew going? When you slide your box in, that mold and mildew is now inside the camper, potentially causing damage to not only the inside of your camper, but causing problems with allergies and stuff like that. So I highly recommend, if you have a camper doesn't have slide toppers, put a slide topper on. This is what our box looks like when it's slid out before we have our topper on. If we get leaves and stuff up here that get wet, maybe we're in a campsite that has a lot of trees, if we don't clean it off, those leaves will pack up against this T-molding or this edge. But when you close it, what it does is it leaves a gap, because it's going to push that molding out. It's going to leave a gap, and that can potentially let water get in. There's a seal here, but the seal, you can see I'm pushing up with my fingers. If we have any leaves down here and it pushes in, what it's going to do, it's going to open that up and allow anything to go inside the camper. So again, my professional opinion, highly recommend slide topper on your slide outs. It's going to save you a lot of money and a lot of time in the long run. Now that we have our slide topper on, you can see how much better coverage we're going to have if we didn't have one at all. Our box is covered. We don't have to worry about water pulling up on here. We don't have to worry about leaves packing up, sticks, dirt, debris, and we're not going to have to worry about mold or mildew. So that when we roll in our box, it's going to be nice and clean. We're not going to have to worry about damaging the inside of our camper. Now our slide topper kits are going to come in all different sizes depending on the size of your box. It's going to come with all matching hardware and all the necessary parts to get it installed. Installation is very simple. The canopy. Canopy is a nice durable vinyl. It's going to hold up in all weather conditions. A lot of different reviews of people that have had these on or have these on, year reviews, 2-year reviews, 3-year reviews of using these constantly, are surprised at how well they have held up. Canopies are going to come in black and white, and how you measure for the size that you need is you're going to measure from the outside edge of one side to the outside edge of the other. Once you get that measurement, you're going to go up one size. That's going to give your canopy, or allow your canopy to come out to this outside edge so that it outhangs your box 3 inches. All the components, whether they're black or white, are going to have a nice powder coat finish. Steel construction, they're going to hold up really well. Now that we've gone over some of the features, let me walk you through how to get it installed. To start your installation, if you have a gutter up here, you want to make sure you remove it. If you have the rail that's already installed for your slide topper, you can go ahead and leave that on. Your slide topper will just fit right into place. The gutter, once you remove it, you want to make sure you try to remove as much of the old sealant as possible. Once you do that, what we're going to do is we're going to measure not from the edge, but from the top of the T-molding up. Directions are going to tell you 3 inches. If we go up 3 inches from here, we're actually going to be above these holes where our gutter was. What I want to do is I want to cover those holes with my new piece on there. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go 2 inches, and then when we put our rail up, I'm actually going to flip it over, so it's going to give us that extra height that we need. So we're going to take a measuring tape, go 2 inches above, and we're going to put a couple of marks. Again, we're going from the top of the T-molding. We'll put a couple more down there. That way when we put our rail up, we can line it up right with those lines, and we're in a straight line. Next thing you want to do is you want to get all of your hardware out and your brackets. You're going to need these 2 brackets, and if you had to remove the gutter, you're going to need this piece, which is going to come with your kit. One thing that's not going to come in your kit that you are going to need, highly recommend it, is butyl tape. You can find it here at eTrailer. We're going to take this and put it on the back side of our brackets in this track and cover the holes where we're going to be putting screws on. Set it on like that. Now what I like to do is, if you want, you can just take another piece and put it on there. What I like to do is take this paper, fold it up on this edge like this. We're going to take another piece. I want to make sure I butt those two pieces together. And if you use the paper and push it like that, we'll actually seam the two pieces together. We're going to do both brackets the same way. We're going to take this rail, and on the bottom edge, this is where our slide topper bead is going to be going in. You want to flip it over to the back side, and right inside of here, we're going to take that butyl tape and go from one end to the other. You want to stay in between these lines and make sure you're covering the screw holes. We're going to press this into place, and we're going to leave the paper on this one for now. We're going to flip it over. We're going to take a pair of pliers, and on one end, we're going to take these corners and we're just going to bend them out. Now, it doesn't matter which end you do, whichever way you're going to slide your slide topper canopy in. The reason we do this is so that when we're sliding it in, the corners don't grab onto the canopy and rip it. Just like that. You're going to have a couple different screws. One set of screws is going to be for your brackets, for your sidewall. The other ones are going to be for your rail that goes above. The self-tappers are going to be for your rail. You're going to have 10 screws like this. Those are for your two brackets. We're going to take our bracket. You're going to make sure that this lip here is facing up. We're going to go right up against the bottom edge of our T-molding and as far over to the corner as we can get. The nice thing about the butyl tape, or one of the nice things, is we can put it up like that, and you can push it on there and it'll stick. Now we're going to take our hardware, square bit, and as we drive the screw through, that butyl tape is actually going to grab the threads and it's going to pull it into the hole to help seal that hole. Now you can either leave your butyl tape like that. I like to cut it off, and we don't want to take the knife if you're going to cut it off and run it against the side. All we need to do is just kind of score it a couple times, and then we can peel it off. Once you get done with one, you repeat the process for the other one. Next, we can put our rail up. You can install this like this or flipped around this way. What I recently started doing is installing them like this, because all the screws will then be covered by the canopy, and less chance of them rusting out and having to replace them later on, or them coming out. We'll take it and we're going to line it up on our lines. And before we stick it to the wall, we want to make sure that we have an even amount sticking off the ends. Then we can start installing our hardware. What I suggest doing is starting at one end and going down to the other. If you start here and then skip a couple, what happens is that middle might bow up a little bit, and it could cause the bead inside to kind of curl like this. So just start at one end and go down to the other. Now what I like to do before I get my topper in place is you're going to have some little screws like this. They're self-tappers. These are, when you put your canopy in, it screws down through the bead to hold the bead in place. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put these in from the bottom again so that the canopy protects it. But I'm going to kind of pre-drill the spot because these like to slip off because that is a rounded edge. So your canopy is going to come out to the outside edge of your box. We're going to go in about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. We're just going to drill right out through it. And you don't necessarily have to go all the way through. Just get a little hole there so that when you're putting it in, it doesn't slip off. We're going to do that at both ends. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get our roller assembled. You want to make sure that you lay your roller out the right way. If you notice, camper's to my back, you want the canopy to be rolling over top of the roller so that this part of the arm is facing out. Kind of roll it back a little bit. You're going to notice a hole in the end. You're going to take this rod, slide it in. You're going to take the end cap, and there's a gap there. You want that gap to be lined up with the hole. I'm going to slide it in like that. We're going to have some large self-tappers like this. These may not go in all the way. What you want to make sure you don't do is you don't want to dry these down to where they break off. They don't need to go in that far. They just need to go in to where they stop and they're holding this rod and this end cap on. Take a Phillips screwdriver or Phillips bit. Just like that. Another thing I like to do, because the hardware is not the same color, so you go out and get yourself a paint marker. You can color that, put the paint marker away. If any of it starts to chip off, actually any of these parts start to chip off, you can use your paint marker to touch them up. Once you get one side done, you're going to repeat the process on the other. Next, what we want to do is you want to unroll your canopy just one time, or one round. And if you need a second set of hands, might be a little bit easier. This one's a little bit smaller one, so it's not too difficult. We're going to take this bead, we're going to slide it in that rail. Get down to the end. Let this hang a little bit. So now we're going to get it centered, so we make sure we have the same amount of overhang on each one. We're going to roll this up like this. You're going to have a bracket that looks like this. You're going to slide it on that bar. I'm going to take it, and there's actually two slots, high and low. We're going to put it on the lowest one so it sits the canopy part that is going along this edge. It doesn't make contact with the top of our box. Do that there, and we'll do the same thing on this side. Once we've made sure that our canopy is centered, we have the even amount or same amount sticking off the ends on both sides. We want to check our rods to make sure that this end, because we're going to be putting a self-tapper in here through the rod, we want to make sure that it's going to hit the rod. If not, you can slide this bracket over a little bit so that it makes contact. Once we have it set in place, we're going to take an Allen wrench. You're going to have some little bolts that look like this. Whichever, if you did the top, you're going to put it in the top two holes. If you slid it in the bottom, you're going to use the bottom two holes. And these are going to help hold the bracket in place to keep it from sliding back and forth. You're going to take the self-tapper, looks like this. Now you got to be careful with these so you don't break them. So what I like to do is not just drive it in there, because when this heats up, that's when it starts to get soft. You kind of feather the trigger back and forth. Just like that. Once you get one side done, you're going to repeat the process on the other. Once you get all your hardware in place on both your brackets, you're going to take your canopy, you're going to grab it and spin it backwards take a pair of pliers and you're going to pull this pin out of each end. What I suggest doing is when you pull these out, save them. So that if you ever have to do anything with this, you can spin it back, stick these back in, and you don't have to worry about the spring inside unwinding. Once we get everything done, we're going to slide our box out. We're going to take our self-tapper, run it right through our rail, right through the bead. That's going to keep our canopy from sliding inside that rail. We're going to put one of these at each end. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to seal the top edge of this. I'm going to be using LaSalle Bristol non-sag sealant, beige, so it matches the camper. All I'm going to do is cut a little bitty angle on it. We're going to run it right down this edge. Then what I like to do is once you get your bead in there, take a wet rag or paper towel, get the end of your finger kind of damp, and take it, and we're not going to push, we're just going to run it across there. Once you've sealed the top rail, you're going to repeat the process on any other slide out slide topper you're installing. That's going to do it for a look at and installation on the Solera 6-foot slide topper on our 2016 Keystone Cougar XLite fifth wheel.